In Mongolia, President Lee Jae-myung has called on the Mongolian Prime Minister to closely oversee the implementation of the agreements reached a day earlier, particularly in economic exchanges, innovation, and defense industry cooperation. Riding the global AI boom, SK hynix is set for a landmark Nasdaq debut tonight after raising a record 40 trillion won in the biggest ever U.S. listing by a foreign company. The Middle East is on edge once again as fighting between the U.S. and Iran intensifies, and Israel says it stands ready to act. We begin tonight in Mongolia, where President Lee Jae-myung wrapped up the second day of his state visit by reinforcing Korea's strategic partnership with the country. After summit talks with his Mongolian counterparts a day earlier, he held separate talks with Mongolia's Prime Minister and Parliamentary Speaker. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yu-jin reports from Ulaanbaatar.
After agreeing with Mongolian President Hurulsu Ufna to usher in a new golden era in bilateral relations, President Lee Jae-myung spent Friday building support to turn that vision into reality. Lee held talks with Prime Minister Otranyam Osor, who heads Mongolia's executive branch.
총리께서 또 실무를 총괄하고 계시니까 우리가 어제 합의한 여러 가지 의제들, 특히 이제 경제 교류나 아니면 핵심 광물 협력이나 방위 산업 분야 협력 등도 총리께서 잘 챙겨주시면 좋겠습니다.
I will instruct the relevant ministers to ensure that the agreements reached by our two leaders are put into action and produce tangible results.
Calling Thursday's summit highly productive, the Prime Minister particularly welcomed the two countries reaching a deal in principle on a comprehensive economic partnership agreement as he led Mongolia's negotiating team. He also reaffirmed the need for greater cooperation in critical minerals by combining Mongolia's abundant mineral resources with Korea's advanced processing technology. Lee also met with Parliamentary Speaker Pyeongbachuk Sandak, asking for Parliament's continued support while stressing the legislature's role in strengthening bilateral ties. Earlier in the day, the president paid tribute to the late Dr. Lee Tae-jun at his memorial park in the Mongolian capital. Lee, a Korean independence activist and physician, founded the Dongi Medical Clinic in Mongolia in the early 1900s, providing medical care to local residents while supporting Korea's independence movement against Japanese colonial rule. In the guestbook, President Lee wrote that he would carry on Dr. Lee's legacy by opening a new chapter in the Korea-Mongolia partnership.
On Saturday, the final day of his three-day state visit, President Lee will be a guest of honor at Nadam, Mongolia's national festival, becoming the first Korean president to do so. He and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung will then attend a farewell luncheon with the Mongolian first couple before heading home. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News, Ulaanbaatar.
Also in Ulaanbaatar, President Lee Jae-myung met with members of the Korean community and pledged to usher in a new era of strategic partnership with Mongolia. During the meeting on Friday, he noted a growing bilateral cooperation in critical minerals, high-tech industries, energy, and supply chains. He also praised the Korean community in Mongolia for serving as a bridge between the two countries and pledged to address the difficulties faced by Koreans living overseas. And Mongolia's former prime minister says Korea and Mongolia should deepen cooperation beyond natural resources. Speaking exclusively to our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young, he also weighs in on the Korean peninsula.
Building on historic bonds and shared ambitions for the future, Korea-Mongolia relations must evolve from resource trade to joint value creation and regional cooperation. That's according to former Mongolian Prime Minister Sander Shotar Gombashov. Speaking with Arirang News, Sander Shotar said countries like Korea and Mongolia have a greater role to play as global cooperation becomes more fragmented.
USA-China rivalry is reshaping trade, technology, security, and supply chains all at once. Economics and national security have become part of the same conversation. Reinventing cooperation means moving beyond rigid, traditional multilateralism and complementing it with many unilateral partnerships.
While critical minerals have featured prominently in recent years, Sander Shatar says the partnership must expand beyond resources.
That model is no longer enough. It leaves too much value outside Mongolia, and it does not fully serve Korea's long-term need for resilient supply chains. The practical step is to build the value chain together: responsible exploration, processing, technology transfer, joint research, workforce development, environmental standards, financing, digital finance.
He says Korea's strengths in digital technology and Mongolia's digital government platform could complement each other, from AI-powered geological exploration to public services and smart infrastructure. Beyond bilateral ties, Sander Shatar also sees Mongolia playing a wider role in connecting Northeast and Central Asia, not only economically but politically, grounded in trust.
Middle corridor should be understood more than routes. It is part of new geoeconomic architecture for how Eurasia connects Northeast Asia, Central Asia, Caspian region, and Europe. Mongolia can help fill that gap through geography, trust, dialogue, and practical cooperation. Regional cooperation should also go beyond traditional security, energy, critical minerals, supply chains, climate cooperation, technology, connectivity. Young people can create shared interests. Shared interests help rebuild trust over time.
Mongolia also aims to be a diplomatic bridge between South and North Korea.
Mongolia is a nuclear weapon-free state with a multi-pillared foreign policy and no hidden agenda. Our contribution is to preserve communication channels, build confidence and trust, and support practical cooperation when opportunities arise.
In order to look forward, he raised the need to look back on the centuries of Koreans and Mongolians as neighbours, calling their ties a brotherhood alliance. Sander Shatar was Prime Minister until March this year. Beginning his career as an economist, he has also served as Foreign Minister and Parliament Speaker. Arirang, Arirang News.
In other news, SK hynix is making its long-awaited Nasdaq debut tonight after securing a record 40 trillion won through the largest ever U.S. stock offering by a foreign company. Lee Ju-yeon tells us more.
South Korean chipmaker SK hynix is set to raise about $26.5 billion through its U.S. listing in what is expected to become the world's second largest share sale after SpaceX's record-breaking IPO last month. SK hynix said Friday that it has finalized the pricing of its American depository receipts at $149 each ahead of its Nasdaq debut on Friday under the ticker symbol SKHY. The company is capitalizing on booming demand for artificial intelligence infrastructure, as it remains the world's leading supplier of high-bandwidth memory, or HBM chips. These advanced memory chips are a key component in AI processors used for training and running cutting-edge artificial intelligence models. The proceeds from the offering will be used to expand production capacity, including the construction of new factories and the purchase of additional manufacturing equipment to keep pace with soaring global AI chip demand. Investor interest has been exceptionally strong. According to Bloomberg, demand for the offering was more than 7 times greater than the number of available shares, highlighting confidence in SK hynix's central role in the rapidly growing AI supply chain.
There's a lot of attention there. There's an awful lot of demand. There's a lot of retail interest.
Meanwhile, the United States is continuing to push for greater semiconductor investment from South Korean companies. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said he wants Samsung Electronics and SK hynix to build more chip plants in the United States, revealing that discussions are already underway. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for Micron's new semiconductor plant in New York on Thursday, Lutnick said he wants Micron's rivals to follow its lead in expanding manufacturing in America. Micron recently announced plans to invest more than $250 billion in U.S. semiconductor manufacturing and technology by 2035. Lotnick acknowledged that Micron's chief executive may not welcome more competition, but stressed that attracting Samsung Electronics and SK hynix is essential to further strengthening the U.S. semiconductor supply chain. 이주연, Arirang News.
A fragile ceasefire in the Middle East is on the verge of collapse as the U.S. and Iran exchange military strikes for a third consecutive day. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
The United States and Iran exchanged military strikes for a third consecutive day on Thursday, putting a fragile peace agreement to the test. The temperature has been raised further by Israel as it signaled its readiness to rejoin the military campaign. Israel's defense minister said the military is maintaining a high state of alert and is fully prepared to resume operations against Iran, including airstrikes, if necessary, to eliminate threats.
The IDF is on alert and ready to renew the campaign, to reestablish aerial superiority, and to carry out a blue-white strike in Iran to remove threats, even for a third time. If we will have to return, we will return with even greater force.
Early Thursday, U.S. Central Command launched cruise missiles deep into Iranian territory in an effort to degrade Tehran's ability to threaten shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The strikes hit Iran Shah Airport and targeted two railway bridges in northern Iran, including the Ak-Takeh Khan Bridge. According to U.S. media, the action marked the first time the U.S. has targeted Iranian infrastructure since a two-week ceasefire was agreed on April 8th. Iran's health ministry reported that the ongoing U.S. air campaign has killed at least 14 people and injured 78 others. Explosions were also reported near southern port infrastructure in Bandar Abbas and Sirik. In response, Iran launched retaliatory strikes targeting U.S. and allied military assets in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Jordan. U.S. President Donald Trump said that while he believes the ceasefire with Iran is over, the recent escalation does not mean a return to war. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, meanwhile, analysts point to differing interpretations of the U.S. Iran agreement on the Strait of Hormuz as the trigger for renewed violence in the region. Ian Jin reports.
The 60-day ceasefire agreed to in a memorandum of understanding on June 17th paused the full-scale conflict between the U.S. and Iran. But a dispute over paragraph 5 has led to violence twice in the past 2 weeks. It's the wording. Article 5 specifies that Iran make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels. The article also states that Iran demines the waters, including removing military obstacles. Iran interpreted the clause to recognize its exclusive control over the Strait of Hormuz, while the U.S. interpreted this clause as the legal basis for guaranteeing safe navigation through the strait. The gap in interpretation is wide. Rather than the conflict winding down and progress made towards a final peace deal, the two sides returned to opening fire as the United States and its Arab allies in the Gulf region maintain that they cannot recognize Iran's control over the strait. Iran's lead negotiator, Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, argues that the wording of the clause states the Strait of Hormuz is open with Iranian arrangements, not American threats. President Trump said he considers the tenuous ceasefire between the two countries over. The Strait of Hormuz is once again stunned. CNN reported on Thursday that a ship tracking website recorded that only around 13 commercial vessels passed through the strait over the previous 24 hours. A further drop from around 25 on Wednesday, which was half the crossings the day before. Before the outbreak of the war, more than 100 ships crossed each day. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea, being the only country besides the U.S. to deploy both an Aegis destroyer and a submarine to RIMPAC, drew a lot of attention from participating navies for their newest technologies and impressive warships. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
When the South Korean Navy first participated in the Rim of the Pacific in 1990, it came with only 2 warships. This year, marking the 19th edition of its participation, a lot has changed. The Navy has not only assumed the role of maritime component commander, becoming the first Navy from an Asian country to lead the force, it came with its most advanced naval assets along with more than 700 Navy and Marine Corps personnel. Among the assets, the largest Aegis destroyer, the 8,200-ton Jeongjo the Great, drew particular attention, as only 4, South Korea, the U.S., Japan, and Australia, were the participating nations that deployed Aegis destroyers. So far, during the exercise period, around 3,000 visitors have come for a tour, who reportedly admire the ship's outstanding capabilities and advanced technology.
Many foreign visitors said the ship was impressive and looked brand new. This exercise showed me how much the Republic of Korea Navy's global reputation has grown, and it made me proud of our Navy.
The frigate Daejeon welcomed the foreign naval crew for a tour.
Many foreign naval personnel who toured the ship praised its well-designed living quarters and said its equipment is laid out with the operator in mind.
The Dosan Anchangho was another Korean naval asset for foreign personnel to tour, especially after it sailed approximately 14,000 kilometers across the Pacific Ocean. In fact, only 4 nations, South Korea, the U.S., Canada, and Peru, deployed submarines this year for RIMPAC. And according to the commander of the submarine, Peruvian naval personnel were impressed by the scale of the 3,000-ton submarine and its advanced capabilities.
Once seen as a small navy that only sent a couple of frigates to RIMPAC in the past, the ROK Navy has now emerged as a major maritime force, showcasing its advanced capabilities and rising global presence. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Honolulu.
K-pop girl group Twice is set to launch the encore leg of its 6th world tour, This Is 4, with 3 concerts at Seoul's KSPO Dome from tonight, July 10th to July 12th. According to the group's agency JYP Entertainment, Twice began the tour in Incheon in July last year and has since performed 81 concerts across 44 cities worldwide. Now, the tour features a 360-degree stage, allowing fans to surround the group. It also significantly increases the venue capacity compared to a traditional concert setup. And during the tour, Twice also made history as the first K-pop group to headline Tokyo's National Stadium in Japan, drawing a total of 240,000 fans over 3 sold-out shows. In the years following the pandemic, many moviegoers continued to stay home and stream films instead. But this year, Korea's theaters appear to be regaining momentum. From major hits in the first half to government-backed discount coupons, there are signs that audiences may be returning to the big screen. For more, we have our culture correspondent Jung Hae-rim here in the studio. Welcome, Hae-rim.
Great to be back, Tommy.
So, Hae-rim, it certainly feels like people are talking more about movies nowadays. How strong was Korea's box office in the first half of the year, and what drove the rebound?
Yes, Tommy. So I had the same feeling that more people were returning to movie theaters since I have watched more movies myself this year. And the numbers back that up. According to the Korean Film Council's box office data, movie theaters attracted around 37.4 million viewers in the first half of this year. And that's nearly a 75% jump from the same period last year. Revenue on movie theaters also rose sharply to 370 billion won, or about $246 million US, which is a whopping 81% increase compared to the same period last year. But this was no coincidence. The rebound was driven by several major box office hits. First came The King's Warden, which drew more than 10 million admissions, followed by the zombie thriller Colony, which surpassed 5 million. That marks a sharp contrast with last year, when only one film in the first half crossed the 5 million mark. So it's fair to say that both audiences and major box office hits are returning.
You know, that is certainly encouraging news, Hae-rim. Now, aside from the major box office hits, what else is driving people back to the theaters?
That is a key question. Earlier today, I spoke with a culture critic who pointed out to 2 main points. Audiences rebuilding the habit of going to theaters and becoming more accustomed to higher ticket prices.
During the pandemic, theater audiences for Korean films dropped sharply. As more people turned to streaming platforms, there were concerns that audiences had lost the habit of going to theaters. But now, several years later, moviegoers may be slowly regaining that habit. And while ticket prices rose sharply and caused strong resistance at first, audiences may now be getting more used to those higher prices.
Another trend in the first half of this year was people sharing short-form videos of their emotional reactions, often showing themselves crying after watching The King's Warden. These clips sparked curiosity about just how moving the film was and may have encouraged more people to see it for themselves. So social media buzz appears to have played an important role in changing audience behavior.
Box office success these days is influenced less by production companies' official promotions and more by viral content created by the public on social media, including audience reactions. So a film's performance may largely depend on how well the industry can encourage audiences to create and share that buzz themselves.
Well, going viral on social media does certainly seem crucial when it comes to marketing these days. Now, Hadim, the question is that will this momentum continue into the second half of the year?
Well, Tommy, I certainly hope so, but experts say that depends largely on the films coming up next. The biggest one to watch is Hope, director Da Hong-jin's first film in a decade. It was invited to the competition section of the Cannes Film Festival and is already drawing attention ahead of its release. Summer is also a key season for theaters, especially with horror films and major franchise titles, including Spider-Man, expected to bring in younger audiences. So if these films perform well, the recovery could continue into the second half. The outlook, however, is fairly positive. During the first half of the year, the Culture Ministry distributed movie ticket discount coupons, and box office revenue rose nearly 48% in the following week. And a second round began this week with around 2.05 million coupons available. Each online member can receive 2 coupons worth 6,000 won each.
I found out about the government discount coupon, and since it was Wednesday, I decided to book a movie ticket.
The original price was 14,000 won, but after receiving a 6,000 won discount, I paid just 8,000 won.
So if major releases continue to draw attention and the discount coupons help lower the price barrier, theaters could see that momentum carry into the second half of the year.
I do hope this momentum carries on to Hedy, and maybe I'll go to the movies myself since it's a weekend.
My pleasure, Dami. Have a great weekend.
You too.
This weekend, the heat wave and tropical nights will become even more intense. Both on Saturday and Sunday, Seoul will reach 33 degrees Celsius, while Daegu will soar to 35 degrees. Heat advisories now cover much of the inland areas, including Seoul, in addition to the Gyeongsang-do provinces. Tropical night advisories are currently in effect for parts of Gangwon-do and Chungcheongnam-do provinces, as well as the southern regions. The heat wave and tropical nights will become even more intense through the weekend. And as the heat and humidity build, it'll feel increasingly uncomfortable outdoors. So if you're spending time outside this weekend, make sure to stay hydrated and take plenty of breaks to avoid heat-related illnesses. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 25 degrees Celsius, Daegu 25 as well, and Jeju 26 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 33 degrees, Daegu 35 degrees, Gwangju 34 degrees. There isn't much rain in the forecast through early next week, but the heat will stick around day and night. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.